Hardwired is a 1986 cyberpunk novel by Walter John Williams. It is my second book I've read by this author, and it is a classic 1980s, original kind of cyberpunk novel. We really follow two characters. One is Cowboy, who pilots a hover tank via neural uplink. He's got some heavy transhuman modifications, and there's also Sarah, who's an assassin that was once a prostitute. And they team up to fight the orbital corporations that now rule America after winning the Rock War. We start with Cowboy. We learn he's from Sagre de Cristo Mountains in New Mexico, which I've been to, and he has a place in Montana and Colorado, which I've also been to, and he's not, and he's actually at the latter at the start in Colorado here. And he also drives a Maserati, and Texas is a wasteland after the war, apparently. We also learn about the so-called Panzer boys that drive these hover tanks. He is a Panzer boy, right? It's pretty heavy metal, to start off, to say the least. And Sarah is, herself, when we are introduced to her, is getting modifications. She doesn't look good enough, naturally, apparently. Her real nerves are described as hardwired, though we also hear that term for Cowboy from wires via his skull in, cyberpunk fashion. They both get jobs at the start, but they don't go as planned. We get stuff from space, hiring Sarah and a guy named Cunningham, if I remember correctly, and Arkady, the Russian, hires Cowboy. And there are hallmarks of the genre here as well. Modifications up to new bodies, including sex changes. It's gruesome and gritty. It's melancholy tone, but, with nice style, nice flourishes, and, literary touches. Cowboy and his tank is almost kind of like a cowboy and his horse type of story. A lovely atmosphere and world building, I feel like, there. It's actually super heavy metal, like I said, though, with the Panzers, which is just cool. Stuff I've seen in later cyberpunk short stories, but I'm sure they are likely getting it from this story. Just some cool, crazy cyberpunk stuff. And also the idea that Ohio has demolished old abandoned houses to dissuade transients is kind of sad but realistic. And this is a longer cyberpunk work, so there's sexual content, which seems to appear pretty often in the genre, unsurprisingly. And there's also kind of a neural pandemic, which, if I remember correctly, doesn't actually prove that pivotal to the plot, but is there. Technically, this is part of a series, but it really works as a standalone. And I think it is one worth your time, actually. And it's also apparently in conversation with something like Damnation Alley by Roger Zelazny, but I haven't read that yet. This also has some close ties to Cyberpunk 2020 by Williams himself, but also Pond Smith. And, this doesn't really hit the exposition in a Gibsonian fashion. It does manage to be more interesting in a realized world and with superb characters than I feel like Gibson does. It's just more entertaining, pretty much. And I look forward to reading other books in this series eventually. Anyways, Liam from Liam's Lyceum. I'll catch you next time.